Welcome back. I'm very excited to introduce you to a really good friend of mine. In fact, I've known Tim Goeglein for quite some time. He is a senior advisor to the president and vice president of external relations for Focus on the Family. Many of you are familiar with this organization. He's based here in Washington, D.C. He's also a current senior fellow at the King's College. His previous work as special assistant to George W. Bush was from 2001 all the way to 2008, which was a long time to be working with the president, and has built amazing relationships here in Washington. And Tim is just a really dear friend, but he's also now author of a new book, American Restoration: How Faith, Family, and Personal Sacrifice Can Heal Our Nation. And what timing, based on what we're talking about today here on Cure America, the collapse of marriage and family. So, Tim, thank you for joining me.
Star, it's great to be with you. And I have to say, I was having a conversation just 2 years ago today, to the day. And a friend of mine lives on the West Coast. And we had been approached by a person who wanted us to write a book.
Okay.
And I said, you know, given where we're going in the country, I really think we ought to think about the narrative of restoration, renewal, and regeneration.
Wow.
Star, who could have thought in his or her wildest imaginations that we would have lived through anything like the last 5 months, especially for marriage, family, parenting, life, culture. I mean, what a dramatic time.
You know, that's really interesting because you're right. Restoration is one component that is getting lost in some of the discussion as we focus in the news on the high suicide rates, the high depression rates. And when you think about family and marriage, some would say, oh, I bet you there's going to be a lot more arguments and divorce. But others are saying, and we're going to have a baby boom because people do restore. So I want to know a little bit about your conclusions before I get down into the other substance. I like to see the end of the story. That's why I don't go to movies, because I want to know what happened, and then I'll go through the rest. So your conclusions point to not just restoration, but revival and renewal. Tell us a little bit about what your experience have showed you working on the policy sides of the issue, and now you're over on the personal sides of these issues.
You bet. Well, I really appreciate that. You know, I spent 10 years working in the U.S. Senate and 8 years at the White House, as you said, and I'm now in my 12th year at Focus on the Family. And there has been, across all of that time, through over 30 years in the public square, this overriding question, which is bigger than politics, and it's central, isn't it? This question is, are we going to ever restore and redeem the United States of America?
Right.
If we are to have restoration, what will it look like? And it seems to me that we've tried everything except for the thing that ought to be tried. We've had top-down chances in the New Deal and the Great Society and the Great Frontier and all of these programs that are born and bred in Washington, D.C., in the Silicon Valley, in Wall Street, in Hollywood. And it all adds up to no restoration for the country.
Not only no restoration, it has collapsed many of our traditional norms, and people are scattered now. And that's why I brought up even, you mentioned the last 5 months, but what's happened in those last 5 months, that people don't have the connections that they used to.
That's right.
That when we look into New York and see challenges in our nursing homes, we say, why are our seniors all in a nursing home? Where is their family?
Right.
So I think that you must be onto something. Even though I'm going to push back a little bit, I think there was a role of pushing back against what some were seeing in the political realm for quite some times. And
Yes.
as you mentioned, you worked in that. We were working together on a lot of these issues, trying to push back darkness. But there has been a turn. There has been this this effort that you Focus on the Family is actually leading to say, let's fix man too. Let's not ignore that we do have a role in this, even if the politicians get it wrong.
That's right.
Go down deeper into that.
Sure, I'd love to. Washington, D.C. has a fix for everything, and their fix always begins, always, with a discussion about how can we increase the size of the federal government, right? It always begins there, you know? And the fact of the matter, and the narrative of our book, American Restoration, and the thing, Star, that I know that you are so passionate about, right, is that all of the ideas, the seedlings of restoration, they are rooted in our local communities, right? You want to tell me that you want to restore America, then restore the family, restore marriage, restore parenting, restore the power and the strength of the church.
And especially on the church, because when you think about most of the charity work for those that have brokenness in their lives, the outreach are from the people that are healthy that then volunteer through their churches to some of our organizations. You got incredible folks that have worked with you on this, or at least have endorsed it, from Ben Shapiro to Jim Daly, who's now the president of Focus on the Family, Ed Meese, who's a very dear friend of ours, Eric Metaxas, he's also a friend, because these are voices that you normally think are in the political world. What we're dealing with right now is this pandemic. We're dealing with excessive government. We're dealing with high unemployment numbers. We're dealing with economic uncertainty. How do people move beyond all of those things that they expect a politician to do and then reach for something that you're talking about, which is just restore yourself?
The answer to that, Star, is don't reach for Silicon Valley. Don't reach for Wall Street.
When you say reach for Silicon, what do you say? Don't go to the social media platforms?
What I'm saying is that Americans now believe that big tech has the solution, or big government has the solution, or big finance. What I am arguing in this book is that if you're going to reach for God, because we are experiencing in the United States today something bigger than COVID and something bigger than the economic crisis that we're in the middle of. And the biggest thing is a spiritual dearth. You know, that is, in my view, the most important matter that we are facing today.
It is, and I think that we can do something about it. Get them go to church on Sunday morning and pick up this book. Thank you for joining me, Tim.
Thank you, Star.
I'll be right back.